The silver-trimmed chair sat empty beside Karina, its vacant leather a deliberate insult to every mourner who noticed. Wendell counted 55 filled seats around Glenn Darby's mahogany casket, but the 56th, his designated spot as the son-in-law, remained barricaded by his wife's designer handbag. "You can stand over there," Karina had whispered 20 minutes earlier, gesturing toward the back corner where distant cousins clustered near a towering fir tree. Her voice carried the kind of cold precision that had once charmed him during their courtship, back when he mistook calculation for intelligence. Wendell adjusted his tie and remained standing. The funeral director shot him sympathetic glances, but protocol demanded silence. Glenn Darby's memorial service would proceed according to Karina's wishes, not common decency. From his exile beside the Christmas tree, Wendell watched his wife of 8 years deliver a flawless eulogy. She spoke of Glenn's business acumen, his charitable contributions, his love for rescue animals. She mentioned his devotion to family, his generosity to friends, his impact on the community. She praised his wisdom, his humor, his unwavering support. She never said Wendell's name. Not once in 15 minutes of scripted grief did Karina acknowledge the man who'd spent every Sunday for 8 years driving Glenn to physical therapy appointments. The man who'd installed handrails in Glenn's shower, repaired his porch steps, and listened to war stories over countless bowls of chicken soup. The congregation murmured approval at appropriate moments. They dabbed their eyes when Karina's voice cracked, a performance worthy of award season. But Wendell noticed something else, the legal document peeking from her clutch purse, his name typed across the letterhead in bold font. During the closing hymn, Karina finally looked his way. Her expression held no grief, no regret, no recognition of 8 years spent building what he'd foolishly believed was a life together. Instead, she offered the smile he'd seen her practice in mirrors, calculated, camera-ready, completely hollow. The service ended with handshakes and condolences. Fellow mourners approached Karina with embraces and kind words. They ignored Wendell entirely, following her lead like sheep obeying an unspoken command. "Beautiful ceremony," Mrs. Peterson told Karina, squeezing her hands. "Glenn would be so proud." "Thank you," Karina replied, dabbing her eyes with tissue. "He was everything to me." Wendell felt his stomach turn. Glenn had been everything to her, apparently, just not enough to include his son-in-law in the farewell. As the crowd dispersed, Wendell approached his wife near the flower arrangements. She was accepting sympathy cards and checking her phone with practiced efficiency. "Karina," he said quietly. She looked up as if surprised to see him. "Oh, Wendell. I didn't realize you were still here. I've been here the entire time." "Standing where you told me to stand." "Yes, well, the family section was quite full." She slipped her phone into her purse, careful to keep the legal document hidden. "I'm sure you understand. I understand perfectly." Something in his tone made her pause. For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing the woman he'd married. Sharp, ambitious, utterly ruthless when cornered. "I'll see you at home," she said, recovering quickly. "I have arrangements to handle." But Wendell wouldn't see her at home. 2 days later, while Glenn's estate lawyers were still calculating his fortune, Karina appeared at their kitchen table with divorce papers and a Mont Blanc pen. "I'm choosing myself," she announced, sliding the documents across the marble surface they'd selected together during happier times. "I think you'll find the terms generous." Wendell stared at the papers without reading them. "You filed before the funeral." The timing seemed appropriate. "You sat beside an empty chair and let everyone think I didn't care enough to attend my father-in-law's memorial." "You're not family, Wendell." "You never were." The words hit like physical blows. 8 years of marriage, 8 years of Sunday dinners with Glenn. 8 years of building a life together, dismissed with surgical precision. "Sign the papers," Karina continued. "I'll make this easy for both of us." Wendell picked up the pen, then set it down again. "What's the rush?" "There's no rush. I simply see no point in prolonging the inevitable." The inevitable. You know what I mean. But he didn't know. That was the problem. After 8 years of marriage, Wendell realized he'd never truly known his wife at all. The inheritance announcement came 3 days later. Glenn Darby's estate was valued at $250 million, a staggering sum that made local headlines and sparked countless conversations about wealth, family, and the price of success. Karina received the call first. She'd been named primary beneficiary, exactly as expected. The grieving daughter would inherit her father's business empire, his real estate holdings, his investment portfolio. Justice served. Then came the invitation to the formal will reading. Wendell debated attending. The divorce papers remained unsigned on his kitchen table, a daily reminder of his crumbling world. He had no legal standing, no family connection, no reason to witness Karina's moment of triumph, but curiosity won. Or perhaps stubbornness. Either way, he found himself walking through the side entrance of Hartwell and Associates law firm on a gray Tuesday morning, dressed in his only decent suit. The receptionist looked confused when he announced himself. Mr. Wendell Morrison? Are you certain you're on the list? I received an invitation. She checked her computer twice before finding his name. Oh, yes, here you are. Conference room B, please. Through that door. Conference room B was smaller than the main conference room, with fewer chairs and cheaper coffee. Wendell recognized the setup immediately, the minor league venue for minor league participants. He took a seat in the back corner, feeling invisible among the assembled lawyers, distant relatives, and business associates. Karina sat at the head table, composed and elegant in her black Armani suit. She didn't acknowledge his presence. Attorney Richard Hartwell cleared his throat and began reading Glenn's final wishes. The document was lengthy, filled with legal terminology and specific bequests. Glenn had been thorough. $50,000 to his housekeeper, $25,000 to his longtime driver, $100,000 to various charities. To my beloved daughter, Karina, Hartwell continued, who has brought such joy to my life, I leave the sum of $1 million. Wendell blinked. $1 million? That seemed low for a primary beneficiary. He glanced at Karina, who maintained her composed expression despite the obvious confusion rippling through the room. The remainder of my estate, Hartwell read, his voice growing stronger, including all business interests, real estate holdings, investment accounts, and personal property, I leave to my son-in-law, Wendell Morrison. The silence was deafening. Wendell felt the room spin around him. $249 million. To him, the man who'd been exiled to the back corner of his father-in-law's funeral. Karina's composure cracked like ice on a spring lake. Her face went white, then red, then white again. She gripped the table edge with white knuckles. There must be some mistake, she whispered. There is no mistake, Hartwell replied gently. Your father was quite specific in his intentions. But I'm his daughter, his only child, his blood. Yes, Mrs. Morrison. And he's made provisions for you accordingly. The meeting continued with technical details about probate procedures and asset transfers, but Wendell heard none of it. He was too busy processing the impossible reality. Glenn Darby had left him a fortune while giving his own daughter what amounted to pocket change. Why? The answer came the next morning when Karina appeared at his workplace. Wendell managed a small construction crew for the city maintenance department, honest work that paid the bills but would never make him rich. He was reviewing blueprints in the equipment trailer when she burst through the door like an avenging angel. You don't deserve this, she snarled, slamming a manila folder on his desk. You know that, right? You don't deserve a single penny of my father's money. Wendell looked up from his blueprints. Good morning to you, too. Don't play games with me, Wendell. I know exactly what you did. What I did? You manipulated him. You played the devoted son-in-law while I was busy building my career. You made him think you were family while I was proving I could handle his business. Wendell set down his pencil. Is that what you think happened? I know what happened. You saw dollar signs and played the long game. Your father never mentioned money to me, not once. Bees. She opened the folder and spread documents across his desk. This is a revised proposal for asset division. Sign it, and I'll make sure you get what you actually deserve. Wendell glanced at the papers. The proposal offered him $5 million in exchange for waiving all claims to Glenn's estate. Generous by most standards, but a fraction of his actual inheritance. You're asking me to give up my legal inheritance for a settlement? I'm asking you to do the right thing. And what's the right thing, Karina? You know what the right thing is. You were never anything more than a symbol to him, a placeholder, a way to pretend his daughter had chosen well. The words stung because they contained a grain of truth. Wendell had always wondered why Glenn seemed to prefer his company over his own daughters. He'd assumed it was because Karina was busy with her career, always traveling, always focused on the next deal. Our marriage was a mistake that lasted too long, Karina continued. You know it, I know it, and apparently my father knew it too. But that doesn't mean you get to profit from it. I'm not profiting from anything. I'm following your father's wishes. His wishes were clouded by sentiment and manipulation. You took advantage of a lonely old man who happened to be your father. Don't lecture me about my father. You didn't know him the way I did. You're right, I didn't know him the way you did. I knew him better. Karina's face contorted with rage. You're nothing, Wendell. You fix potholes and unclog storm drains. You're a city employee with a high school diploma and a pickup truck. You don't deserve to inherit a business empire. Maybe not, but your father thought differently. My father was sick, medicated, confused. Your father was sharper than both of us combined, right up until the end. Sign the papers. No. Sign them, or I'll make your life hell. You already have. Karina stared at him for a long moment, then gathered her documents with sharp, angry movements. This isn't over, Wendell. I'll fight this will. I'll prove you manipulated him. I'll show everyone what you really are. And what am I? Karina? A parasite? She left without another word, but her threat lingered in the air like smoke from a house fire. That afternoon, Wendell received a call from Attorney Hartwell. The news was both illuminating and disturbing. There's something you need to know about your inheritance, Hartwell said. It comes with conditions. What kind of conditions? 40% of your inheritance is contingent on remaining divorced from Karina for a period of 18 months. Wendell nearly dropped the phone. Come again? If you reconcile with your wife within the next 18 months, that portion of the estate will be transferred to the Sunset Hills Dog Sanctuary. Your father-in-law was quite specific about this provision. He wanted us to stay divorced. He wanted you to be free to make your own choices without financial pressure. I don't understand. Perhaps this will help. Hartwell read from Glenn's personal letter. Wendell, if you're hearing this, then my daughter has probably already tried to destroy you. She only knew how to feed you crumbs. Don't let her leash you again. You deserve better than a woman who sees you as a stepping stone to something else. Be free. The words hit like a revelation. Glenn had seen through his daughter's manipulation, had witnessed her treatment of Wendell, had made provisions to protect him from her inevitable attempts at reconciliation. He knew she'd try to get me back for the money, Wendell said. He knew his daughter very well. And he knew she'd divorce me as soon as he died. He suspected as much, yes. Wendell hung up the phone with a new understanding of his father-in-law's final gift. It wasn't just money, it was freedom. Freedom from a marriage that had slowly crushed his spirit. Freedom from a woman who'd never seen him as anything more than a convenient accessory. But Karina wasn't finished. She appeared at his cousin's house the following Sunday, during the family barbecue that had become a weekly tradition. No folder this time, no legal documents, just a single photograph and a softer approach. I brought something I thought you'd want to see, she said, settling into the porch swing beside him. The photograph showed Wendell and Karina on their wedding day, dancing under string lights in her father's backyard. They looked happy, young, genuinely in love. We were good once, she said quietly, before everything got complicated. Were we? You know we were. Remember our first apartment? That tiny place above the bakery? We were broke, but we were happy. Wendell studied the photograph. He did remember their first apartment. He remembered Saturday mornings, in bed, sharing coffee and dreams. He remembered believing they were building something together. That was a long time ago, he said. It doesn't have to be ancient history. We could find our way back. To what? To each other. To what we had before my father's money came between us. Your father's money didn't come between us, Karina. You did. I made mistakes. I was focused on my career, on proving myself. I neglected our marriage. You neglected me. I know. And I'm sorry. The apology sounded genuine, but Wendell had learned to distrust his wife's sincerity. She was skilled at saying exactly what people wanted to hear. What do you want, Karina? I want us to try again. I want to fix what I broke. It's too late for that. It's never too late. We took vows, Wendell, for better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part. You filed for divorce before your father was in the ground. I was grieving. I wasn't thinking clearly. You were thinking perfectly clearly. You just didn't expect his will to change everything. Karina's mask slipped for a moment, revealing frustration beneath the carefully constructed vulnerability. You don't understand the pressure I was under. Everyone expected me to inherit everything, the business partners, the employees, the board members. I was supposed to be his successor. And now I'm humiliated, publicly, professionally. Everyone knows my father chose his son-in-law over his own daughter. So this is about your reputation? This is about us, about our marriage, about giving love a second chance. Wendell set the photograph on the porch railing. There's something you should know about my inheritance. What? If I reconcile with you, I lose 40% of it. Karina's face went pale. What are you talking about? Your father built in a provision, a safety net. He knew you'd try to get me back for the money. That's insane. Is it? Because here you are, trying to get me back for the money. I'm trying to save our marriage. You're trying to save your bank account. You're wrong, Wendell. You're completely wrong. Then prove it. Walk away. Leave me alone. Let me live my life. I can't do that. Why not? Because I love you. No, you don't. You love the idea of controlling me. You love having someone to manage and manipulate. But you don't love me. Karina stood abruptly, leaving the photograph on the porch railing. You're making a mistake, Wendell. You're throwing away everything we built together. We didn't build anything together. You built a career, and I built a life around supporting it. That's not true. It's completely true. And you know it. She walked toward her car, then stopped and turned back. When you change your mind, and you will change your mind, I might not be available. I'll take that risk. After she left, Wendell's cousin Jake joined him on the porch. Hell of a conversation. You heard all that? Hard not to. She's desperate. She's calculating. There's a difference. So what happens now? Now I wait 18 months and see if she leaves me alone. You really think she will? No, I think she'll escalate. Wendell was right. 2 weeks later, an unmarked envelope appeared in his mailbox. Inside was a single sheet of paper with a typed message. There are things you don't know, Wendell. Be careful who you trust with Glenn's secrets. The letter was unsigned, but the implication was clear. Someone knew something about Glenn's passing, something that might change everything. Wendell spent the next week thinking about the warning. Glenn had died of a heart attack. Sudden but not entirely unexpected for a man his age. The funeral had been closed casket per his wishes. The burial had been private, attended only by immediate family. But something nagged at Wendell's memory. Glenn's final weeks had been marked by unusual behavior. He'd seemed paranoid, constantly checking locks and looking over his shoulder. He'd mentioned feeling unwell after certain visits, complained of chest pains that came and went without explanation. Acting on instinct, Wendell drove to Glenn's house, his house now, according to the will. The property had been sealed pending probate, but he had legal access as the inheritor. The study was exactly as Glenn had left it. Books lined the walls, papers covered the desk, and a computer hummed quietly in the corner. Wendell began searching methodically, looking for anything that might explain the anonymous warning. He found it in a hidden folder on Glenn's computer. Email records showing Karina's attempts to access Glenn's legal documents in the weeks before his end. Server logs revealing multiple attempts to modify files in his digital will repository. Timestamps showing her presence in the house at unusual hours. The evidence painted a disturbing picture. Karina hadn't just expected to inherit everything. She'd actively tried to ensure it. She'd attempted to destroy clauses in Glenn's will, delete backup copies of important documents, and gain administrative access to his legal files. The digital trail was damning, but it raised more questions than it answered. If Karina had been trying to manipulate Glenn's will, why had she failed? How had Glenn discovered her activities? And who had sent the warning letter? Wendell's phone rang while he was reviewing the evidence. Karina's name appeared on the screen. You weren't supposed to see that, she said without preamble. See what? Don't play dumb. You're in his study, aren't you? Going through his things like some kind of detective? How do you know where I am? I know a lot of things, Wendell. including the fact that you're not as innocent as you pretend to be. What's that supposed to mean? It means you weren't the only one spending time with my father in his final weeks. You weren't the only one who had access to his house, his computer, his private documents. Are you accusing me of something? I'm stating facts. You had motive, means, and opportunity. Just like I did. Motive for what? You know what? No, I don't know what. Explain it to me. My father died of a heart attack after spending the evening with you. You were the last person to see him alive. You were the one who found his body the next morning. I was bringing him soup because he wasn't feeling well. Soup that you prepared yourself. Soup that he ate shortly before his fatal heart attack? Are you suggesting I poisoned your father? I'm suggesting that your sudden inheritance might not be as random as it appears. You're insane. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you played a very long game. Years of building trust, establishing yourself as the devoted son-in-law, gaining access to his personal information. And then when the time was right, you made sure he wouldn't live to change his mind. That's a sick accusation. Is it an accusation or is it a confession? Wendell hung up the phone with shaking hands. Karina was desperate, but she was also clever. She'd found a way to turn the tables to make him appear guilty of the very crime she might have committed. But her phone call had revealed something important. She was monitoring his activities, tracking his movements, keeping tabs on his investigation. How was that possible unless she had inside information? The answer came the next morning when Wendell returned to Glenn's house. The lock had been changed overnight. When he called the property management company, they claimed to have no record of any authorized changes. Someone was playing games, and Wendell was beginning to understand the rules. He drove to the police station and requested a copy of Glenn's end certificate. The cause of passing was listed as myocardial infarction, heart attack. No autopsy had been performed per the family's request. The family's request. Meaning Karina's request. Wendell spent the afternoon at the library researching poisons that could cause heart attacks. The list was surprisingly long, and many of the substances were difficult to detect without specific testing. If someone had wanted to eliminate Glenn and make it look natural, they could have chosen from dozens of options. But why? What had Glenn done to deserve homicide? The answer was sitting in his computer files, waiting to be discovered. Wendell returned to the house the next evening, prepared to find the locks changed again. Instead, he found the front door standing open. Someone had been inside recently. The study was ransacked, with papers scattered across the floor and desk drawers pulled open. Glenn's computer was gone, along with several filing cabinets and a safe that had been hidden behind a bookshelf. Wendell called the police, but the responding officer seemed skeptical. "You're sure nothing was taken?" "The computer is gone, several filing cabinets. A safe. But you can't identify any specific items that were stolen?" "I'm still cataloging the contents. This is a large estate." "Right. Well, file a report if you discover anything specific is missing." The officer left without dusting for fingerprints or taking photographs. Wendell got the impression that burglaries in wealthy neighborhoods were treated as insurance matters rather than criminal investigations. But this wasn't a random burglary. Someone had been looking for specific information, and they'd found it. Wendell spent the evening cleaning up the study, trying to restore some order to the chaos. Most of Glenn's important papers were gone, but a few items had been overlooked. Business cards scattered under the desk. Bank statements wedged behind a filing cabinet. A handwritten note taped to the bottom of a desk drawer. The note was in Glenn's distinctive handwriting. "If something happens to me, look for the blue folder in the kitchen pantry. Third shelf behind the cereal boxes. Tell Wendell the truth." Wendell found the blue folder exactly where Glenn had described. Inside were documents that painted a disturbing picture of Karina's final weeks with her father. Pharmacy receipts for medications that weren't prescribed to Glenn, a private investigator's report detailing Karina's financial troubles, bank records showing large cash withdrawals from her personal account, and most damning of all, a handwritten letter from Glenn himself. "I suspect my daughter is trying to eliminate me," the letter began. "She's been visiting more frequently, bringing tea and homemade meals. After her last visit, I experienced severe chest pains and difficulty breathing. The symptoms lasted for hours, then disappeared completely. This has happened 3 times in the past month, always after spending time with Karina." The letter continued with specific details about Glenn's symptoms, his growing suspicions, and his decision to change his will. He'd suspected Karina was poisoning him slowly, using substances that would cause heart problems without leaving obvious traces. "I've decided to leave my estate to Wendell," Glenn wrote. "He's been more of a son to me than Karina has been a daughter. If something happens to me, I want him to know the truth about what kind of person he married." The letter was dated 3 weeks before Glenn's end. It wasn't legal proof of homicide, but it was compelling evidence of motive and method. Wendell photographed the documents, then returned them to their hiding place. He needed to think carefully about his next move. Karina was clearly desperate, and desperate people were dangerous. His phone rang at midnight. Karina's name appeared on the screen again. "You found it, didn't you?" she said without preamble. "Found what?" "The blue folder." His paranoid ramblings about poison and homicide plots. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Of course you do. You're probably reading his letter right now, believing every word of his dementia-addled nonsense." "Your father wasn't demented. My father was a sick old man who became convinced that everyone was trying to hurt him. He saw conspiracies everywhere, imagined threats that didn't exist." "Did he imagine the pharmacy receipts?" "What pharmacy receipts?" "The ones for heart medications that weren't prescribed to him. The ones you paid for with cash." "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do. Even if such receipts existed, they wouldn't prove anything. Maybe I was buying medication for someone else. Maybe I was doing research for a friend with heart problems. Maybe you were poisoning your father." "That's a serious accusation, Wendell. I hope you're prepared to back it up with evidence." "Maybe I am. Maybe isn't good enough. Maybe doesn't hold up in court. Maybe doesn't change the fact that you were the last person to see him alive. You're trying to frame me for something you did. I'm trying to protect my family's reputation from a gold-digging opportunist who saw an easy target. Your family's reputation is already destroyed. Everyone knows your father chose me over you. Everyone knows he was manipulated by someone he trusted, someone who gained access to his house, his computer, his personal information, someone who stood to gain hundreds of millions of dollars from his end. Someone like you. Someone like you." The conversation was going in circles, but Wendell could hear the strain in Karina's voice. She was working hard to maintain control, to keep spinning the narrative in her favor. "What do you want, Karina?" "I want you to be very careful about what you do with that folder. I want you to think about how things might look to the police, to the press, to the probate court." "Is that a threat?" "It's friendly advice. From someone who knows how the system works." "And how does the system work?" "The system protects people who know how to work it, people with connections, resources, and influence. People who can hire the best lawyers and private investigators. People like you. People like me." "What about people like me?" "People like you get chewed up and spit out. They lose everything and end up in prison for crimes they didn't commit, or crimes they did commit. Good night, Wendell. Sweet dreams." The line went dead, leaving Wendell alone with his thoughts and Glenn's accusations. He was trapped in a chess game where his opponent controlled most of the pieces, and the rules kept changing. But Karina had made a mistake. She'd revealed too much, shown too much desperation. Her attempts to control the narrative were becoming increasingly frantic. The next morning, Wendell hired a lawyer, not the expensive corporate attorney who'd handled Glenn's estate, but a former prosecutor who specialized in white-collar crime. "This is a complex situation," Attorney Sarah Chen explained after reviewing the documents. "The evidence is circumstantial, but it's compelling. Your father-in-law clearly suspected foul play. Is it enough to reopen his case? Probably not. But it might be enough to challenge your wife's claims in civil court." "What kind of claims?" "If she tries to contest the will, she'll have to prove undue influence or mental incapacity. These documents suggest she was the one exerting undue influence, not you. Can you prove she eliminated him? I can prove she had motive, means, and opportunity. I can prove she attempted to manipulate his will. I can prove she lied about her financial situation and her relationship with her father. What about her accusations against me? They're baseless. You have no motive to eliminate Glenn before he could change his will. You didn't know about the inheritance. You had no access to the medications found in her possession. And you have alibis for the times when she was allegedly being poisoned. So what happens now? Now, we build a case. We gather evidence, interview witnesses, and prepare for battle. This is going to get ugly, isn't it? It's already ugly. We're just going to make it public. The legal battle began 3 weeks later when Karina filed a motion to contest Glenn's will. She claimed her father had been mentally incompetent when he made his final revisions, influenced by medication and manipulation. Wendell's attorney responded with a countersuit alleging that Karina had attempted to homicide her father and manipulate his estate. The documents from the blue folder were submitted as evidence, along with expert testimony about the medications and their effects. The case made headlines in the local papers, then national news. Daughter accused of poisoning father for inheritance dominated the coverage, with reporters digging into every aspect of the Darby family's private life. Karina fought back with her own media campaign, portraying herself as a grieving daughter, victimized by a manipulative son-in-law. She appeared on talk shows, gave interviews to magazines, and hired a public relations firm to manage her image. But the evidence kept mounting against her. Bank records showed large cash withdrawals coinciding with her father's symptoms. Security footage placed her at the house during times when she'd claimed to be elsewhere. Witness testimony revealed her attempts to access Glenn's legal documents. The breakthrough came when investigators discovered that Karina had been researching heart medications online, downloading information about dosages and side effects. Her computer history showed dozens of searches for undetectable poisons and how to cause heart attacks. During the trial, Karina's composure finally cracked. Under cross-examination, she became defensive, argumentative, and increasingly desperate. She contradicted her own previous statements, attacked the credibility of witnesses, and made wild accusations about conspiracies against her. "You eliminated him," Wendell's attorney pressed during a particularly heated exchange. "You poisoned your own father for money." "That's a lie," Karina snapped. "My father was sick. He was dying anyway. I just wanted what was rightfully mine." "So you admit to poisoning him?" "I admit to nothing. I'm saying that if someone wanted to speed up the inevitable, it wouldn't be homicide, it would be mercy." "Mercy for whom? For your father or for your bank account?" "I don't have to answer that." "Actually, you do. You're under oath." "I'm done answering your questions. Are you asserting your Fifth Amendment right against self-incrimination?" "I'm asserting my right to be treated with respect." "Answer the question, Mrs. Morrison. Did you give your father medication that wasn't prescribed to him?" "I want to speak to my attorney." "You can speak to your attorney during the recess. Right now, you need to answer the question." "I don't remember." "You don't remember whether you poisoned your father." "I don't remember giving him any medication." "But you purchased heart medications with cash." "We have the receipts." "I don't remember." "You don't remember researching poisons online?" "I don't remember." "You don't remember trying to access your father's will?" "I don't remember." "What do you remember, Mrs. Morrison?" "I remember that you're trying to destroy me." "I'm trying to find the truth." "The truth is that my father was a sick old man who made bad decisions. The truth is that Wendell manipulated him into changing his will. The truth is that I loved my father and would never hurt him. The truth is that you eliminated him. That's a lie. The truth is that you're a butcher. That's a lie. The truth is that you're going to prison. That's a lie." But it wasn't a lie. The jury deliberated for 6 hours before returning a verdict of guilty on all charges: attempted homicide, elder misuse, will tampering, and fraud. Karina was sentenced to 25 years in prison. She also forfeited all claims to her father's estate, which was redistributed according to his original intentions. Wendell received the full inheritance, minus legal fees and court costs. He donated half the money to charity, established a foundation in Glenn's name, and adopted 2 senior dogs from the Sunset Hills Sanctuary. The case became a landmark in estate law, cited in legal textbooks and discussed in law schools. Karina's story was featured in true crime documentaries and podcast series, but for Wendell, the real victory wasn't financial, it was emotional. He'd learned to sleep through the night again, to trust his instincts, to believe he deserved better than crumbs from someone else's table. The divorce was finalized while Karina was in prison. She sent him one final letter from her cell, written on prison stationery in her familiar handwriting. "You ruined everything. I hope you're happy." Wendell fed the letter to his dogs, 2 gray-muzzled retrievers named Hope and Justice. They seemed to enjoy the taste of expensive stationery more than the sentiment behind it. 6 months later, Wendell received an unexpected visitor. Margaret Peterson, one of the mourners from Glenn's funeral, appeared at his door with a casserole and an apology. "I owe you an explanation," she said, settling into his kitchen chair. "About the funeral. About why we all ignored you. You don't owe me anything. I do. We all do. Karina told us you were having problems, that you'd been drinking, that you'd threatened to disrupt the service if you sat with family." She said what? She said you were unstable, dangerous. She asked us to keep our distance for everyone's safety. And you believed her? We had no reason not to. She was Glenn's daughter, and you were, well, you were just the son-in-law. Just the son-in-law. I'm sorry, Wendell. We should have known better. Glenn talked about you constantly. He was so proud of you, so grateful for everything you did for him. He never said that to me. He said it to everyone else. He used to brag about how you fixed his porch, how you drove him to appointments, how you listened to his stories. He called you the son he never had. Then why didn't he tell me? Because he was afraid you'd think he was trying to buy your affection. He didn't want you to feel obligated to spend time with him. So he left me his fortune instead. He left you his fortune because he knew you'd use it well. Because he trusted you to honor his memory and take care of the things he cared about. Things like the dog sanctuary, things like the dog sanctuary, things like the children's hospital, things like the scholarship fund for trade school students. How do you know about the scholarship fund? Because I help run it. Glenn started it 5 years ago, but he never put his name on it. He wanted to help kids who were good with their hands, but couldn't afford college. Kids like me. Kids like you. Margaret stayed for dinner, sharing stories about Glenn that Wendell had never heard. She painted a picture of a man who'd been lonely but generous, wealthy but humble, successful but haunted by his daughter's coldness. He knew what she was, Margaret said, as she prepared to leave. He just hoped she'd change. People don't change. Some people do. You did. How did I change? You learned to stand up for yourself. You learned to fight back. You learned that you deserved better than what she was giving you. It took me long enough. It took you exactly as long as it needed to take. After Margaret left, Wendell sat on his porch with hope and justice, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The dogs dozed at his feet, content and peaceful. His phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "Saw the news about your ex-wife. Good for you. You deserve better. A friend." Wendell smiled and deleted the message. He'd learned not to trust anonymous communications, but he appreciated the sentiment. Life had become quiet in the best possible way. He'd kept his job with the city, enjoying the honest work and the camaraderie with his crew. The inheritance sat in carefully managed accounts, generating income for the charities Glenn had cared about. The house was finally finished being renovated. Wendell had kept Glenn's study exactly as it was, turning it into a memorial of sorts. The rest of the property had been updated with modern amenities and security systems. He'd also installed a small memorial garden in the backyard, with a bench overlooking the sunset and a plaque that read, "Glenn Darby, beloved father-in-law and friend." The bench was his favorite spot for morning coffee and evening reflection. It was where he'd been sitting when the call came from the prison warden. "Mrs. Morrison has been involved in an incident," the warden explained. "She's in the hospital." "What kind of incident?" "A fight with another inmate." "She's stable, but she's asking for you." "Why would she ask for me?" "Apparently, you're her only emergency contact." Wendell hung up without responding. He had no obligation to visit Karina, no desire to see her, no interest in whatever game she was playing now, but curiosity got the better of him. 3 days later, he found himself in the prison hospital, staring at his ex-wife through reinforced glass. Karina looked older, harder, diminished by orange scrubs and fluorescent lighting. Her designer facade had crumbled, revealing the desperate woman beneath. "You came," she said through the intercom. "I was curious." "About what?" "About what you could possibly want from me now. I wanted to apologize." "Apologize for what?" "For everything. For the way I treated you. For the way I treated my father. For the choices I made." "You're apologizing because you're in prison." "I'm apologizing because I'm dying." Wendell studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation. "What are you talking about?" "The fight wasn't random. I owed money to some people, people who don't accept late payments. So you got yourself knocking up? I got myself stabbed. Internal bleeding, the doctors aren't optimistic. I'm sorry to hear that. Are you? Are you really sorry? I'm sorry that anyone has to die alone and afraid. Even someone like me? Even someone like you. I loved you once, Karina said quietly, before everything got complicated. Before I became the person I became. I know. Do you remember our first apartment, the one above the bakery? I remember. We were happy then. I don't know when I stopped being happy. I don't know when I stopped being grateful for what I had. You wanted more than I could give you. I wanted more than anyone could give me. I wanted everything. And now? Now I just want to not be alone when I die. You're not alone. You have guards, nurses, doctors. They're not here for me. They're here for their jobs. What do you want me to do? I want you to forgive me. I already have. I want you to mean it. I do mean it. I want you to remember the good times instead of the bad times. I'll try. I want you to know that. I'm proud of what you did with the inheritance. My father would be proud too. Thank you. I want you to know that I'm sorry for trying to destroy you. I know. I want you to know that you deserved better than what I gave you. I know that too. I want you to promise me something. What? Don't let this experience make you bitter. Don't let what I did to you prevent you from trusting someone else. I'll try. Promise me you'll find someone who sees you the way my father saw you. Someone who appreciates what you have to offer. I promise. Promise me you'll be happy. I promise. Karina died 3 days later. The prison held a small memorial service attended by a chaplain, 2 guards, and Wendell. He was the only one who spoke, reading from a letter Glenn had written years earlier about second chances and redemption. The funeral was private, held in the same cemetery where Glenn was buried. Wendell paid for the headstone, a simple granite marker that read, Karina Darby Morrison, beloved daughter. He stood at her grave for a long time, thinking about the woman she'd been and the woman she'd become. He thought about their wedding day, their first apartment, the dreams they'd shared before ambition consumed them. Finally, he placed a single white rose on her grave and walked away. The drive home took him past the church where Glenn's funeral had been held. The silver-trimmed chairs were gone, replaced by wooden pews filled with strangers attending evening services. Wendell pulled into the parking lot and sat in his truck, remembering the day that had changed everything. The empty chair beside Karina, the humiliation of being exiled to the back corner, the cruel precision of her calculated grief. But also the unexpected gift that had emerged from that cruelty. The inheritance that had freed him from a toxic marriage, the knowledge that Glenn had loved him like a son, the strength to fight for what he deserved. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed Jake's number. Where are you? His cousin asked. Dinner's getting cold. I'm on my way. Everything okay? Everything's perfect. Good. Sarah's got someone she wants you to meet. I'm not ready for that. You've been saying that for 2 years. It's only been 18 months. It's been exactly 18 months and 3 days. The condition in Glenn's will expired last week. I know. So you're free to date whoever you want. I know. Or marry whoever you want. I'm not ready for marriage. Nobody's talking about marriage. We're talking about dinner with a nice woman who likes dogs and renovates old houses. She renovates houses? She's a contractor, like you. I'm not a contractor, I'm a city employee. You're a contractor who happens to work for the city. Fine. I'll meet her. Good. Her name's Amanda, and she's bringing dessert. What kind of dessert? The kind that goes with second chances. Wendell laughed, surprising himself. I'll be there in 20 minutes. Take your time. Good things are worth waiting for. Wendell hung up and started the engine. In the rearview mirror, he could see the church steeple rising against the darkening sky. For a moment, he imagined Glenn sitting in one of those silver-trimmed chairs, smiling with approval. Then he drove toward his cousin's house, toward Sunday dinner and second chances, toward a future that suddenly seemed full of possibility. The dogs were waiting when he arrived, tails wagging with unconditional enthusiasm. Hope and Justice had taught him about loyalty, about living in the moment, about finding joy in simple things. Amanda turned out to be everything Jake had promised, funny, intelligent, genuinely interested in Wendell's work and his dreams. She asked about his renovations, his plans for the house, his thoughts on sustainable building practices. She didn't ask about the inheritance, the trial, or his ex-wife. She seemed more interested in his hands, calloused from honest work, than his bank account. "You have good hands," she said, examining his fingers while they walked the dogs after dinner. "Strong, steady, capable. They're just hands. They're craftsmen's hands. They build things, fix things, create things." That's a gift. My ex-wife used to say I had workers' hands. She meant it as an insult. She meant it as a limitation. She was wrong. There's nothing more attractive than a man who can build something with his hands. Even if it's just storm drains and pothole patches. Especially if it's storm drains and pothole patches. Cities need infrastructure. People need clean water and smooth roads. You're making life better for everyone. I never thought about it that way. That's because you're humble. It's refreshing. They walked in comfortable silence, watching Hope and Justice explore the neighborhood with senior citizen enthusiasm. The dogs had slowed down over the past year, but they still enjoyed their evening adventures. "Tell me about them," Amanda said, nodding toward the dogs. "They're rescues. Glenn, my father-in-law, left money for a dog sanctuary in his will. I adopted these two after everything was settled. They're beautiful." "How old are they?" "Hope is 12. Justice is 13. They're both considered senior dogs." "Why did you choose senior dogs?" "Because they're harder to place. Most people want puppies or young dogs." "The older ones get overlooked." "Like you were overlooked?" "Maybe. I hadn't thought about it that way. I bet they're grateful for the second chance. I think we all are." They reached the end of the street and turned back toward Jake's house. The porch light was on, and Wendell could see his cousin watching from the window. "He's protective," Amanda observed. "He's been like a brother to me, especially during the trial." "That must have been difficult." "It was necessary." "Are you glad it's over?" "I'm glad the truth came out. I'm glad justice was served. I'm glad Glenn's memory was protected." "And your ex-wife?" "She made her choices. She lived with the consequences. Do you miss her?" "I miss who I thought she was. I don't miss who she actually was." That's a healthy distinction. It took me a long time to understand the difference. They stopped at Amanda's truck, a well-maintained F-150 with contractor plates and a toolbox in the bed. She reached for her keys, then hesitated. "Would you like to have dinner again sometime?" she asked. "Just the two of us?" "I'd like that." "Good. How about Saturday? I know a place that allows dogs. Hope and Justice would love that." "Perfect." "It's a date." "It's a date." She drove away with a wave, leaving Wendell standing in the driveway with two tired dogs and a feeling he hadn't experienced in years. Anticipation. Jake appeared at his elbow. "So? So what? So how'd it go?" "It went well. Well enough for a second date? Saturday dinner. Outstanding. I told you she was perfect for you. You told me she was nice. Nice, perfect, whatever. The point is, you're getting back out there. I was never really out there to begin with. You were married to a woman who didn't appreciate you. Now you're free to find someone who does. It's one dinner, Jake. It's a beginning." They walked toward the house, where Sarah was waiting with leftover dessert and questions about the evening. The conversation was warm, familiar, comfortable, everything Wendell had missed during his marriage to Karina. "She liked you," Sarah announced after interrogating him for 20 minutes. "How do you know?" "Because she asked if you were always that thoughtful, or if you were just making a good first impression." "What did you tell her?" "I told her you were always that thoughtful, sometimes to a fault." "Sometimes to a fault? You have a tendency to put other people's needs ahead of your own. That's not necessarily a bad thing. It is if you're married to someone who takes advantage of it. Karina was a user. Amanda isn't. There's a difference." "How can you tell?" "Because Amanda asked about your interests, your dreams, your plans for the future. Karina only asked about your usefulness. That's not entirely fair. It's completely fair. I watched you disappear during that marriage. You stopped talking about your own goals, your own happiness. Everything was about supporting her career, her ambitions, her vision of success. I was being a good husband. You were being a doormat. There's a difference. Thanks for the pep talk." "I'm serious, Wendell. You're a good man. You deserve someone who sees that, appreciates it, and gives it back." "And you think Amanda is that person?" "I think Amanda has potential. But more importantly, I think you're ready to find out. The drive home was peaceful, with Hope and Justice sleeping in the back seat and soft music playing on the radio. Wendell felt lighter than he had in months, optimistic about possibilities he'd forgotten existed. The house was quiet when they arrived. He let the dogs out for their final bathroom break, then settled into Glenn's study with a cup of coffee and the evening newspaper. The obituary section caught his attention. Someone had placed a death notice for Karina, listing her survivors and requesting donations to a sufferers' rights organization. The notice was brief, factual, and unsigned. Wendell wondered who had placed it. Probably her attorney, or perhaps a distant relative who felt obligated to acknowledge her passing. Either way, it marked the end of a chapter in his life. He folded the newspaper and set it aside. Tomorrow was Monday, which meant back to work, back to the simple satisfaction of maintaining infrastructure and solving problems with his hands. But first, he had a phone call to make. Darby Foundation, the receptionist answered. How may I help you? This is Wendell Morrison. I'd like to increase our scholarship budget for next year. Of course, Mr. Morrison. How much of an increase were you thinking? Double it. And add a new category for women in construction trades. That's wonderful. Any particular reason for the expansion? I met someone tonight who reminded me why it's important to invest in people who build things. I'll prepare the paperwork. Anything else? Yes. I'd like to establish a fund for senior dog adoptions, something to cover medical expenses for older animals. That's a beautiful idea. What should we call it? The Hope and Justice Fund. Perfect. I'll have everything ready for your signature tomorrow. After hanging up, Wendell sat back in Glenn's chair and looked around the study. The room held memories of a man who'd believed in second chances, who'd seen potential where others saw limitations, who'd trusted Wendell with his legacy. Thank you, he said quietly to the empty room. For everything. The dogs appeared in the doorway ready for bed. They'd claimed the master bedroom as their own, with Hope preferring the left side of the bed and Justice taking the right. Wendell had initially tried to establish boundaries, but he'd quickly learned that senior dogs had their own rules. He turned off the lights and headed upstairs, followed by his faithful companions. The bedroom was comfortable, furnished with quality pieces that would last for decades. No more cheap furniture from discount stores. No more temporary solutions for permanent problems. As he got ready for bed, Wendell thought about the conversation with Amanda. She'd asked good questions, shown genuine interest in his work and his dreams. She'd treated him like someone worth knowing, not just someone worth using. It was a refreshing change. His phone buzzed with a text message. Thank you for a wonderful evening. Looking forward to Saturday. Amanda, he typed back. Me too. Sweet dreams. Then he set the phone aside and climbed into bed, where Hope and Justice were already snoring softly. Outside, the wind rustled through the trees Glenn had planted decades earlier. The sound was soothing, peaceful, full of promise. For the first time in years, Wendell fell asleep easily, dreaming of second chances and new beginnings. Saturday arrived with perfect weather and perfect timing. Amanda picked him up at 6, looking comfortable in jeans and a sweater that matched her eyes. The restaurant was casual, dog-friendly, and exactly the kind of place Wendell had always wanted to try. This is perfect, he said, watching Hope and Justice settle under the table with practiced ease. I hoped you'd like it. The owner rescues dogs, too. She keeps treats behind the bar. They'll be spoiled. They deserve to be spoiled. The conversation flowed easily over dinner. Amanda talked about her business, her plans for expansion, her philosophy about sustainable construction. Wendell shared stories about his work, his discoveries during the house renovation, his hopes for the foundation. They found common ground in their love of honest work, their respect for craftsmanship, their belief that small actions could make big differences. You're not what I expected, Amanda said over dessert. What did you expect? Someone bitter, someone damaged by what happened with your ex-wife. I was bitter for a while. I was definitely damaged. What changed? I realized that staying bitter would be like letting her win. Like letting her poison the rest of my life. That's very wise. That's very therapist recommended. Amanda laughed. You went to therapy? I went to therapy. Best decision I ever made. What did you learn? I learned that I deserve to be treated well. I learned that love shouldn't feel like work. I learned that I'm enough, just as I am. You are enough. More than enough. So are you. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the dogs dream under the table. The restaurant was busy but not crowded, filled with the kind of people who appreciated good food and honest conversation. Can I ask you something? Amanda said eventually. Of course. Are you ready for this? For dating, for getting to know someone new? I think so. Are you? I think so too. But I want to be honest with you about something. What's that? I know about your inheritance, about the trial, about what happened with your ex-wife. I figured you did. It was pretty public. I want you to know that I'm not interested in your money. I'm interested in you. I appreciate that. I mean it. I have my own business, my own goals, my own bank account. I don't need someone to take care of me financially. What do you need? I need someone who sees me as an equal. Someone who respects my independence but isn't threatened by it. Someone who can build something with me, not just for me. That sounds reasonable. Someone who can love me for who I am, not who they think I should be. That sounds perfect. Someone who understands that partnership means sharing everything. The good times and the bad times, the successes and the failures, the dreams and the disappointments. Someone like me, someone exactly like you. The evening ended with a long walk through the neighborhood, holding hands while the dogs explored every interesting smell. They talked about everything and nothing, comfortable in each other's presence. When they reached Amanda's truck, she turned to face him. I had a wonderful time tonight. So did I. I'd like to do this again soon. How about tomorrow? Tomorrow's Sunday. Don't you have plans? I have dinner with my cousin's family. You're welcome to join us. Are you sure? I'm sure. Jake and Sarah would love to see you again. In that case, yes, I'd love to join you. She kissed him then, soft and sweet and full of promise. It was the kind of kiss that made him remember why people fell in love, why they took chances on each other, why they believed in happily ever after. When they broke apart, she was smiling. See you tomorrow? See you tomorrow. He walked home with the dogs, feeling lighter than he had in years. The house welcomed him with familiar warmth, and he settled into his evening routine with a sense of contentment he'd forgotten existed. The next morning brought sunshine and the promise of new beginnings. Amanda arrived at noon with homemade cookies and a bouquet of flowers from her garden. For Sarah, she explained, handing him the flowers. And for you, she added, offering him a cookie. You didn't have to do that. I wanted to. I like contributing to good things. Jake and Sarah welcomed her like family, and the afternoon passed in a blur of conversation, laughter, and shared stories. Amanda fit seamlessly into their group, asking questions, sharing experiences, and making everyone feel comfortable. After dinner, she helped with the dishes while Wendell played with Jake's children in the backyard. Through the kitchen window, he could see her talking animatedly with Sarah, both women laughing at something Amanda had said. She's good for you, Jake observed, joining him on the porch. How can you tell? Because you're laughing again. Really laughing, not just being polite. I feel like myself again. You feel like a better version of yourself. Maybe. Definitely. Karina tried to shrink you down to fit her vision of what a husband should be. Amanda seems to appreciate you exactly as you are. It's still early. It's never too early to recognize a good thing. What if I mess it up? What if you don't? What if she gets tired of me? What if she doesn't? You're not very helpful. I'm being perfectly helpful. I'm reminding you that you deserve to be happy. I know that. Do you? Because you're acting like you expect disaster to strike at any moment. I'm being cautious. You're being scared. There's a difference. Maybe I am scared. That's normal. That's healthy. That means you care. I care a lot. Good. Now stop looking for reasons why it won't work and start looking for reasons why it will. The conversation was interrupted by Amanda's appearance on the porch. Are you two plotting something? Just discussing the weather, Jake said innocently. The weather's been beautiful lately, Amanda agreed. Perfect for long walks and outdoor conversations. Speaking of long walks, Wendell said, would you like to walk home with me? It's only a few blocks. I'd love to. They said their goodbyes and headed into the evening, with hope and justice leading the way. The neighborhood was quiet. filled with the comfortable sounds of suburban life. Children playing, lawn mowers running, families gathering for Sunday dinner. "Thank you for including me today," Amanda said as they walked. "Thank you for coming. Your family is wonderful. They're good people. They stood by me during the trial. That's what family does. Not all family. My ex-wife's family dropped me completely after the divorce. Their loss. I used to think it was my loss. Now I realize it was a blessing. Sometimes losing the wrong people makes room for the right people. Is that what this is? I think so. I hope so." They reached his house just as the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. The dog settled on the porch while Wendell and Amanda sat on the swing Glenn had installed years earlier. "This is peaceful," Amanda said, leaning against his shoulder. "It's home. Tell me about your plans for the house. I want to restore it to its original condition, but with modern conveniences, solar panels, updated electrical, better insulation. I want to honor the past while embracing the future." That sounds perfect. "I'd like to add a workshop behind the garage, somewhere I can work on projects in my spare time." "What kind of projects?" "Furniture, mostly. Maybe some sculpture. I've always wanted to try woodworking." "I could help with that. I know a supplier who specializes in reclaimed wood." "You'd want to help?" "I'd love to help. If you want me to." "I want you to." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. The dogs dozed at their feet, and the sounds of evening gradually replaced the sounds of day. "I should go," Amanda said eventually. "Early morning tomorrow. Big project? Kitchen renovation. The client wants everything done by next weekend. Sounds challenging." "I like challenges. I'm beginning to understand that about you." She stood and stretched, then leaned down to kiss him goodnight. "I'll call you tomorrow." "I'll be here." "I know you will. That's one of the things I like about you." "What's that?" "You're reliable. Steady. Someone I can count on. Is that enough?" "It's everything." After she left, Wendell sat on the porch with the dogs, thinking about reliability and steadiness and the value of being someone others could count on. Karina had seen those qualities as limitations, signs of small ambition and smaller dreams. Amanda saw them as strengths, foundations upon which larger things could be built. The difference in perspective was profound. His phone rang, interrupting his thoughts. The caller ID showed his attorney's number. "Sorry to call so late," Sarah Chen said, "but I thought you'd want to know immediately." "Know what?" "Karina's estate has been settled. She left everything to you." "She left what to me?" "Her remaining assets? About $50,000 plus some personal items." "Why would she do that?" "She included a letter. I can read it to you or I can mail it." "Read it." "Wendell, I know you probably don't want anything from me, but I need you to have this. It's not much, but it's all I have left. Use it for the foundation or the dog sanctuary or whatever you think is right. I'm sorry for everything I put you through. I'm sorry for the person I became. I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive me, and I hope you can build something beautiful with the life I tried to destroy. You deserve to be happy. You deserved it all along. Karina." Wendell was quiet for a long moment, processing the unexpected gift and the sentiment behind it. "What do you want me to do with it?" his attorney asked. "Add it to the scholarship fund." "The one for women in construction trades? Are you sure?" "I'm sure." "And Sarah?" "Yes. Thank you for everything. For believing in me, for fighting for the truth, for seeing this through to the end. You're welcome. You deserve justice." "I think I got something better than justice." "What's that?" "I got a second chance." After hanging up, Wendell looked around his property with new eyes. The house Glenn had loved, the garden he'd tended, the trees he'd planted, all of it was now truly his, free from the shadow of legal battles and family drama. But more than that, he had a future that looked bright with possibility. A woman who appreciated him, friends who supported him, work that satisfied him, and a foundation that would help others long after he was gone. It was more than he'd ever dreamed of during those dark years with Karina. The dogs stirred, ready for their final walk of the evening. Wendell clipped on their leashes and headed into the neighborhood, thinking about second chances and new beginnings. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opportunities, new reasons to be grateful. But tonight, he was content to walk his dogs and count his blessings under a sky full of stars. 6 months later, Wendell stood in his workshop, putting the finishing touches on a coffee table made from reclaimed barnwood. Amanda had found the material at a demolition site, and together they'd transformed it into something beautiful and functional. "It's perfect," Amanda said, running her hand along the smooth surface. "Your best work yet. I had good help. You had good instincts. I just provided the materials. You provided the inspiration. Is that what I did?" Among other things. The workshop had become their favorite place to spend time together. Amanda would work on small projects while Wendell learned new techniques, and they'd talk about everything and nothing while their hands stayed busy. It was the kind of partnership Wendell had always dreamed of, but never expected to find. "I have something for you," Amanda said, pulling a small box from her pocket. "What's the occasion?" "No occasion. Just something I saw and thought you'd like." Inside the box was a small silver pendant shaped like a dog bone with hope and justice engraved on either side. "It's beautiful," Wendell said, genuinely touched. "I thought you could wear it on your keychain." "A reminder of the good things in your life." "You mean the best things in my life." "I mean the things that matter most." "Speaking of things that matter most," Wendell said, setting down his tools and taking her hands, "I have something to ask you." "What's that?" "I love you. I love you too. I know we've only been together for 8 months, but I feel like I've known you my whole life. I feel the same way. I want to build something with you. Not just furniture, not just a business relationship, something permanent." "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I want to marry you. I want to wake up next to you every morning and fall asleep next to you every night. I want to grow old with you and build a life with you and face whatever comes next together." "Are you proposing?" "I'm proposing. Without a ring, with a promise to let you pick out your own ring. Something that suits you, something you'll want to wear every day. Something practical, something beautiful. Something that represents us. Something that represents forever." Amanda smiled through tears he hadn't noticed forming. "Yes, yes, yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'll build something permanent with you. Yes, I'll grow old with you and face whatever comes next together." "Really? Really?" They kissed then, surrounded by the smell of wood shavings and the promise of a future they'd build together, one day at a time. Outside, Hope and Justice were barking at a squirrel, their tails wagging with senior citizen enthusiasm. The sun was setting through the workshop windows, painting everything in golden light. It was, Wendell thought, the perfect ending to a very long story. Or maybe it was just the beginning. The end.